So hi everyone, I'm Rob Knight and I'm SUSE's CTO of Enterprise Cloud Products. I get to spend most of my time talking with our customers and partners about the huge world of cloud native, but with a particular focus on how our customers can implement a successful strategy for what ultimately is one of the tech industry's hottest ever buzzwords, and that's Kubernetes. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about the value of cloud native and containers and Kubernetes, introduce the concept of Kubernetes management, and give an overview of how you can implement a successful Kubernetes management strategy with SUSE's open source project, Rancher. But first, a very quick introduction to SUSE. I'm sure some of you have heard of us before. We're best known for our enterprise Linux operating system, SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, and we've been in the open source industry for more than 28 years now. But more recently, we've produced open source projects and commercial products all across the realm of software-defined infrastructure, from virtualization to storage. And with the rise of containers and our recent acquisition of Rancher Labs, we're able to support our customers with their digital transformation and migration efforts more effectively than ever before. Now, when it comes to mainframe technology, we at SUSE, we've got a long history of partnering with IBM to ensure that our customers have one of the best Linux experiences on top of the mainframe. To give a couple of examples, our customers were the first to benefit from an enterprise Linux distribution on mainframe, as well as the first to benefit from technologies like Linux KVM and live patching on top of the mainframe as well, which can allow you to apply critical security patches to your workloads without a reboot. And I think these reasons, along with our contributions in the open source mainframe community, are some of the reasons that we've been trusted for years now to run traditional workloads on the mainframe. But what about future workloads? And what about what you do with those legacy workloads? And over the course of the event today, we're going to hear various strategies from different vendors on how you can modernize or re-architect or redevelop mainframe workloads to run in the cloud. And that was a very great presentation from Microsoft. I definitely learned a lot. And I want to talk about how our open source projects and products can support you if you decide to migrate towards a cloud native architecture. And I fully appreciate this doesn't apply to everyone on this call. And as we've just heard from the Microsoft guys, there are many tools out there that can help you modernize. But many of SUSE's customers are choosing to re-architect their workloads to a more cloud native architecture, usually running inside of containers on top of Kubernetes. And as Kubernetes is one of our specialities, I feel that this is one area that we can have significant impact, and that's why I'm talking about it today. Now, we all hear a lot about the cloud. As Larry and Bob just talked about, cloud is becoming a reality for more and more workloads. And as we enter 2021, I think it's safe to say that cloud native methodologies are really starting to underpin digital transformation pretty much everywhere. There are now cloud connective ecosystems in pretty much every industry. But what does that migration to cloud native mean for your organization and the teams within it? For your application design teams, it often means a shift from monolithic architecture towards microservices or even serverless architectures. And they can really help gain you speed and agility in a world where change is permanent. But for your app development teams, it means driving towards continuous customer feedback with rapid releases and a new way of working between developers and your IT operations teams. A cloud-native approach to software development introduces big organizational changes like CI/CD and DevOps practices. And it's these app development teams that are also often embracing containers at scale. Now, your infrastructure teams face some of the biggest changes. Cloud native often means automation, scalability, portability, and predictability of infrastructure deployment. They'll start decoupling infrastructure dependencies from the applications that run on that infrastructure and start implementing full automation of deployment, which can ultimately result in huge productivity savings for cloud native IT teams. This is also where containers and infrastructure as code are essential. But any change in the design with the design teams, the development style, or any change in the infrastructure automation can have a huge impact on all of those other areas. And quite often, companies and teams have various projects addressing these changes simultaneously. Now, I mentioned containers just now, as they're really one of the most pivotal technologies enabling the shift towards cloud native. Of course, when it comes to modernizing mainframe workloads, there are many options out there, as some of the other excellent speakers are talking about today. But containers can provide one of the most flexible and is one of the options that our customers are choosing more and more. Now, I'm often asked by our customers, what use cases for containers do we see most commonly in the market? I'd say the most common use case we hear from our customers is that they're using containers to build new cloud-native apps that are fast and scalable and help differentiate themselves from their competition. But a lot of our customers are also using containers to modernize and scale infrastructure efficiently. They're using the best infrastructure for each use case. And then this is where the cost of running applications can be optimized and where scalability and resiliency is built in. They're using this enhanced capability to drive additional innovation in their backend services as well. But we're also seeing a huge rise in our customers using containers to re-architect traditional monolithic applications, especially workloads that traditionally might have been run on the mainframe. When it comes to mainframe workloads, containers provide a natural fit for microservice-based architectures. But there is also some exciting emerging use cases that you can start taking advantage of once you embrace cloud-native methodologies, such as AI ML, Edge, and also modernizing existing line of business applications. Now, a modernization strategy involving containers is only as good as the underlying container orchestrator that powers them. Of course, running individual containers on their own doesn't really get you much business value. And this is where Kubernetes comes in, a technology that I'm sure some of you have heard about before, and a technology that is proving pivotal for container adoption within the enterprise. Let's start by understanding why Kubernetes is such a transformative technology. Simply put, Kubernetes enables a common compute platform across any infrastructure by automating the deployment, scaling, and management of your containerized workloads. With Kubernetes, you can architect and build containerized solutions that can run anywhere, be that a developer's laptop, servers in your on-premise data center, in the public cloud, or in branch or edge locations. And it does this by orchestrating the deployment, scaling, and management of those containerized apps in a consistent manner through standardized APIs. But not only does Kubernetes provide us with a great compute and container platform, it also provides a comprehensive set of infrastructure capabilities that any containerized app is going to need when running in production. Now, traditionally, this functionality would have to be built out as part of the platform manually, perhaps using custom scripts or a combination of open source orchestration projects. But when you embrace Kubernetes, you get everything required out of the box. Now, the technical arguments for Kubernetes are interesting, but the bottom line matters the most. As a company, you want maximum performance at the lowest cost, and you're always searching for that intersection between value and impact. Kubernetes enables your business to adapt to changes in the environment quickly, pushing out changes to your app as quickly as your teams can develop and test them. It makes it easy to design a system where changes go out without any downtime, ultimately increasing overall business velocity. But Kubernetes is also finding a home in businesses of all kinds, from telecom and service providers, retail and manufacturing, banks and financial services, to government and healthcare. Many businesses have found that Kubernetes helps make their business more successful overall as part of a wider IT strategy. When it comes to vendor lock-in, Kubernetes itself is open source software, and in March 2018, it became the second largest open source project after Linux itself. Now, as long as your business is using a CNCF certified distribution of Kubernetes and not a feature restricted fork, your projects will never find themselves locked in to a specific platform or cloud again. And Kubernetes also maximizes your investment in infrastructure, whether that's on-premise or in the cloud. If you choose to run applications hosted inside of a hosted Kubernetes environment, such as AWS EKS, GKE, or Microsoft Azure, you're already starting with a reduced footprint and benefiting from the cloud model of paying for what you use. The frameworks present in Kubernetes let you pack applications to near maximum density. And if any app needs more resources, Kubernetes can automatically scale the resources of the underlying infrastructure up and down to meet that need. And as with the cloud, you're only paying for what you use, you make sure you're using the right amount at any given moment, and as such, optimizing costs. But for all of its transformative capabilities, Kubernetes can create overhead and risk if it's not managed properly. The challenge is that Kubernetes clusters are typically deployed without central visibility, which can lead to cluster sprawl and make centralized management hard. They're often deployed without a consistent approach to security policies, which can cause a big headache for the security team. Also, when first starting out with containers in Kubernetes, clusters are typically deployed and managed independently by individual teams or projects. A lot of companies started their journey with small deployments managed by small DevOps teams. And when it comes to rolling it out further, you need an approach that's more centralized, more scalable, and much more friendly to the IT operations team. An effective Kubernetes management strategy can address all of these concerns, as well as provide you with a multitude of additional benefits. Now, what do I mean when I say Kubernetes management? I think Kubernetes management is all about containing the chaos. Deploying and managing a single Kubernetes cluster is easy enough, but teams are going to need many clusters over time. And Kubernetes management is all about providing a single management tool for multiple clusters. A tool that can reduce the complexity and the need to think about standalone cluster units and allow our teams to work with the entire container-based platform estate as a whole. It can make life easier and for Kubernetes to be consumed by multiple teams, ensuring that the deployment and lifecycle management of clusters isn't a burden or a bottleneck to innovation. It can also help provide a seamless experience wherever you want to spin up clusters, regardless of if it's the public cloud, private cloud, or edge locations. When it's done with a good management tool, the experience is the same. Kubernetes management can also give us a single pane of glass over our entire estate, and this keeps the ops and security teams happy, but it also makes life easier for our developers as well. Now, the majority of developers, based on the latest CNCF survey, prefer graphical-based development tools such as VS Code. A good Kubernetes management tool can bring this intuitive graphical experience to the Kubernetes world. We can also use Kubernetes management to reduce vendor lock-in. If your clusters are deployed using a central management tool, and if that management tool is open source software, then it doesn't matter if you need to migrate workloads to a different cloud or platform, as your teams only need to interact with the management tool that's abstracting those underlying clusters. And finally, with a good Kubernetes management platform, you can utilize it to build effective platforms on top of Kubernetes. A good management tool includes best-of-breed cloud-native tooling for monitoring, service mesh, continuous integration and delivery, and GitOps. And it makes it a lot easier to deploy and manage these from a single place across multiple clusters, rather than deploying and managing them individually. Now, whichever Kubernetes distribution or management tooling you choose, you should ensure that it addresses the needs of both developers and IT operations. And when I talk to customers, they express that the management tool that they want to use needs to support any infrastructure. They're not just talking about where the management tool runs. They want their management tool to support any certified Kubernetes distribution running in any location. And they want that management tool to deliver unified authentication. Now, as some of you may know, the different clouds all have different authentication strategies, and a good Kubernetes management tool should abstract those strategies away and provide a unified way to manage authentication and permissions. Developers should be able to work with a Kubernetes cluster running in AWS by signing into the management tool using their Microsoft Azure AD credentials, for example. But I think the most important point raised to me is that simplified cluster operations and simplified multi-cluster operations matter the most to the IT operations teams. They want the ability to manage on-premise and cloud Kubernetes clusters in the same way, and they want that way to be easy to use. And this is what leads me to Rancher, which is SUSE's preferred open source Kubernetes management tool. It can provide all of the above and more. Now here's the approach that we take. When it comes to Kubernetes, we recognize that it's a multi-cluster world out there. Rancher has been a pioneer in multi-cluster management for more than 4 years, and it's by far the most popular open source Kubernetes management platform. But also, it's a simple fact that Kubernetes distributions are commoditized. Now, increasingly, customers are realizing that the business value of Kubernetes isn't in the distribution itself. There are many Kubernetes distributions tailored for different use cases, including the popular cloud-hosted distributions. Now, we at SUSE, we've got 3 distributions ourselves, and the argument that one vendor's distribution is superior to others often doesn't hold water anymore. And that's because the value is in Kubernetes management. Tools like Rancher unite Kubernetes clusters with centralized authentication and access control, with enterprise security, auditing, backups, upgrades and lifecycle management, centralized observability and alerts. You can deploy and secure clusters consistently in minutes, anywhere, using an intuitive UI or powerful command line tool. As I touched on earlier, you can manage on-prem clusters and those hosted in any cloud from a single pane of glass. And with that, you can centrally configure security policies, auditing, and monitor performance. You can deploy multi-cluster apps consistently from a centralized app catalog and control access by connecting them to your internal identity provider like Active Directory, LDAP, or Okta. But more important for this space, using a tool like Rancher, you can scan and assess cluster configuration against CIS and NIST benchmark best practices, and you can consistently deploy securely provisioned clusters on any infrastructure. All of that can also be achieved in fully air-gapped environments as well. And that's why we at SUSE believe that the value is in Kubernetes management. Being able to utilize all of those benefits on any certified Kubernetes distribution is something unique to SUSE Rancher technology, and it's what our customers love the most about us. Using the Rancher management platform, you can deploy an Amazon EKS cluster, run a self-hosted Kubernetes distribution such as RKE, or import an Azure-managed AKS cluster, and gain all the benefits of centralized authentication, application management, and policy enforcement. Wherever your mainframe workloads run after modernization, you can manage them and the underlying infrastructure in the same vendor-agnostic way, which ultimately lets your teams choose the best tools and frameworks for the job. But finally, something also unique about our approach is our approach to open source. Now, as Ron mentioned, SUSE is a leader in open source, and we've been doing it for nearly 29 years now. And as I mentioned, SUSE Rancher supports any CNCF certified distribution running on any enterprise-grade operating system, allowing you to pretty much pick and choose the best bits that you need for the job. Now, of course, like many vendors, we've got impressive stats behind this as well, from a huge partner catalog to adoption in every market vertical. But the difference to our customers really is our approach to open source. Is that you and your teams can go to rancher.com today and get started with the most popular open source Kubernetes management platform. When we bring all of this together, we have the world's leading open source Kubernetes management platform, bundled with best-in-class open source projects. Now, this is the complete stack, but most of our customers will pick and choose the pieces that they need for their deployment. And if we take a look at one of those customers, I'm going to pick Absa today, which is South Africa's third largest retail bank. They didn't have a standardized branch office set up before. they would spend often around $2,000 per engineer visit when they were launching a new branch to go out, install the hardware, and set it up. Now, by migrating to cloud native and using Rancher, they can pre-configure all of that in-house and pretty much just pay for delivery of the server to the branch office. Once it's powered up, it will automatically register through to the Rancher management dashboard, and then they can go ahead and provision the apps on top. What that ultimately did is reduce the overhead costs by up to 75% and management time by 80%. So to summarize, with a successful Kubernetes management strategy, such as one provided by SUSE Rancher Kubernetes Management Platform, both IT operations and DevOps teams can benefit. Your IT ops teams are able to centrally provision Kubernetes services while maintaining control and visibility of all clusters, resources, and security. The provisioned services, in turn, are available in the ecosystem catalog for use by your DevOps teams. And then by leveraging that catalog, DevOps teams can efficiently build, deploy, and manage fully featured containerized apps. The end result really is that everyone gets what they need. The IT ops team gets what they need, the DevOps team gets what they need, and that your organization can realize the benefits of a successful container and Kubernetes strategy. Now, Kubernetes is here to stay, and I think the successful failure is in how ultimately you implement it and if you implement a successful management strategy. And I think if I had one kind of call to action today, it's that if you think containers or Kubernetes might be a potential migration target for you or your organization's mainframe workloads one day, head over to rancher.com and start thinking about what kind of platform you want your future cloud native workloads to run on. There's also free training, tutorials, and other resources as well on there, as well as countless other customer testimonials. And if you're a government agency, I recommend checking out rancherfederal.com as well, as we've obviously got optimized versions of our software for the federal compliance space as well. And never hesitate to drop me an email or reach out through Ron to reach out and contact. Thank you, everyone.